Hello! This video is going to talk about the discriminant of a quadratic function, how to calculate it, and then how to use those results to analyze how many roots there are to that quadratic function and what type they are. So a quadratic function, when you graph it, is a parabola, which is a U-shaped graph. I have other videos that kind of talk about that. And I also want to mention that the discriminant is part of the quadratic formula, which is a surefire way of being able to find the roots of a quadratic function. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail of how they're connected. You can go find my other video on how to use the quadratic formula. So this discriminant is just a small piece of the quadratic formula so that we can quickly determine how many roots and what type there are. So the steps are already on the screen for you to copy down if you want to make a concrete list. Some people learn quite well that way. Step 1, step 2, step 3. And I want to talk about step 2 where it says identify the A, B, and C. So the standard form of an equation is, for a quadratic anyways, looks like this. And you can see I'm writing some A's, I'm writing some B's, I'm writing some C's, but this is what they call the standard form. It looks kind of ugly. In a minute you'll see an example which actually has numbers there. But this A value is always in front of the x squared term. The B value is always in front of the x term, and the C is always the one that doesn't have an x. A and B are technically called coefficients. They're just numbers in front of variables, and C is a constant. It has no variable attached to it. So once you find the A, B, and C, you're just going to have numbers. There will be no x's involved in this math, which is really cool. Some people, it sounds really scary, right, the discriminant, but all it is you're taking three numbers and you're doing something with them. And what you can see in step 3, in case the way that I've typed it in there doesn't make sense, this is the discriminant, b squared minus 4ac. You're going to apply PEMDAS onto that, and you will get a number that comes out of it. So step 4 is a little bit more detailed. You might want to write this down. If we evaluate the discriminant and it is greater than 0, then that means that you're going to have 2 real roots. Okay, or 2 real solutions. Roots is another word for solutions, which is another word for zeros, which is another word for x-intercepts. They're basically interchangeable for the most part. If you calculate b squared minus 4ac and it's greater than 0, you have 2 real roots. If you calculate the discriminant and it is equal to 0, you will have 1 real root. And if you calculate the discriminant and it is less than 0, in other words, if it's a negative number, you're going to have 2 imaginary roots or 2 imaginary solutions, okay? And so all we're going to do is we're just going to jump into some examples, and let me just go to the next screen. All right, so the first example is, let's say we have this equation here. We have 2x squared minus 4x plus 3 equals 0. Step 1 is done for us. That step said to get all terms to one side. I draw a line through the equal sign to kind of just pinpoint for myself where the 2 sides are, and you can see all the terms are on the left-hand side, and the only thing on the right-hand side is 0, so that's perfect. So next is step 2. Our A value is the number in front of the x squared, which is 2. Our B value is the number in front of the plane x, which is a negative 4. And again, the signs that are in front of those numbers are part of the numbers. And then our C value is a positive 3. Next, we just want to calculate b squared minus 4ac. And remember, when you're squaring a number, especially if it's a negative number, you need to put it in parentheses with the squaring outside. Especially if you're going to use a calculator. If you do not put the squaring outside the parentheses, you put it inside, the calculator is going to be completely concrete, but it will give you the wrong answer because you have typed it in wrong. So negative 4 squared minus 4 times our A value, which I can see is 2, times our C value, which is 3. Applying the order of operations, we would do parentheses first. In all the parentheses I have written down, there's no math inside. There are only numbers inside. So there's no parentheses to do. So we jump right to exponents, which would be negative 4 times negative 4. And I'll just copy this. I'll take a little baby steps, I guess. Next, we have multiplication and division from left to right. So I'm going to copy the 16 and the minus, and then I'm going to do 4 times 2, which is 8. My next step, again, I'm just taking it nice and slow. And there's no reason why, if you're allowed to use a calculator, you could have just put this into your calculator all at once and the calculator would have given you the correct answer as long as you put that -4 here in parentheses. So anyways, our last step where I was, 16 minus 24 gives us a -8. -8, this number is less than 0, so we have 2 imaginary roots. And that's it. That's all it entails to use the discriminant and analyze the roots. The roots, there are 2 of them, and they are imaginary. All right, let's do 2 more examples on the next page. So this example here, let's do -x squared, let's say plus 2x plus 4 equals 0. So again, step 1 has been done for us. We can see that all the terms are on the left-hand side. And then you might notice that the first, our a value, there's a negative sign there. Well, if you're a good algebra student, you'll learn to make that a -1. It just draws your eye to the fact that there is a -1 there that's being multiplied by the x squared. And I think that's just a smart habit to get into. So identifying our a, we have a -1. Our b is a +2. Our c is a 4. And then when we substitute b squared minus 4ac, we end up with 2 squared minus 4. Our a value is -1, and our c value is 4. Again, you can just pick up your calculator and do it straight out. If you want to do it, off by hand like I am, then that's fine too. So now I'm working on my multiplication. -4 times -1 is a +4. And then I would have 4 plus 16, which is 20. So this number that I got this time, 20 is greater than 0. So in this case, we would have 2 real roots. Kind of squished that in, didn't I? All right. Now let's do the last one. The last example, let's say, maybe I'll switch colors. Getting kind of cocky here, thinking of switching colors, but we'll see how it works out. So this equation, let's say we have x squared plus 4 equals 4x. For this example, you can tell that step 1 is not done. We don't have all the terms on one side. And when that is the case, I bring all the terms over to the side where the x squared is. I always think quadratics are the boss. So I want to bring everything over to the x squared. So the x squared is next to the 4. I need to bring the 4x across the equal sign. So I'm going to use an inverse operation and subtract the 4x. All right. So I show that on both sides. And now my equation is x squared minus 4x plus 4 equals 0. Step 1 is done. Step 2, I am going to write my a, which is, so again, there's no number in front of the x squared, but we can put a 1 there, okay? There's always a 1 there. It's just sometimes, most of the time, we don't write it, but it's just we have 1 x squared. So there's the a value would be 1. The b value is -4, and the c value is +4. Okay, so now b squared minus 4ac, our b is -4 minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 4. I'm a big proponent of a lot of students in high school. I teach in high school, so it's like they just tend to grab the calculator. As soon as they get all the terms on one side, they grab the calculator. I am a fan of writing out what you're going to type in the calculator first. I just have seen too many people make mistakes. They're not thinking about what they're doing. They're trying to shuffle the A, B's, and C's with all the negatives and type it incorrectly. But if you just write it out, like take the 3 seconds it takes to write it out, then grab your calculator. It's just a little bit better. -4 squared, that's going to give us 16, minus 4 times 1 times 4 is also 16. So you can see in this case we got 0. When our discriminant equals 0, that means that we have 1 real root. Whoops. Let's see if I can get rid of that. There we go. Perfect. Well, I hope this helped a little bit. I would check out next the video that I have for the quadratic formula. And this is embedded into that. So that will, if you have mastered this, you'll do pretty well on the quadratic formula. Thank you and have a great day.